sign it before dessert. Or I promise you, my son's marriage will be annulled by Monday morning. My mother-in-law's voice never rose above a whisper. It didn't need to. Sitting beside the Cranberry was a 14-page postnuptial agreement designed to leave me with nothing. A pen had been placed beside it like silverware, like it belonged there. My husband Daniel sat directly across from me, studying his wine glass, refusing to meet my eyes. What none of them knew, not Margaret, not Howard, not their Yale-educated enforcer, Preston, was that I had been waiting 3 years for exactly this moment. And I came prepared. The Holloway estate had never felt like home. Not in 3 years of trying. I was 28 when I married Daniel. Young enough to believe that love could outlast judgment. Old enough to recognize, the moment I walked through those iron gates, that his family had already decided what I was. A girl from nowhere. My mother worked double shifts at a grocery store. My father left when I was 4. I had grown up in a small apartment in Akron where the heat sometimes didn't work and dinner was sometimes cereal. The Holloways had known this. They had filed it. Asterisk your background. Asterisk Margaret used to say, making it sound like a weather condition. Something unfortunate, beyond anyone's control. They knew Daniel's company. They knew his portfolio. They had researched every person their son had ever dated. But when he brought me home, they looked at me and saw a category, and categories. To the Holloways, didn't require investigation. That was their mistake. What they didn't know, what they had never bothered to ask, was that at 24, I had founded a software company called Wheeler Systems. I had built it in computer labs and cheap apartments, running simulations at 3 a.m., certain I was onto something and terrified I was wrong. By the time I married Daniel, I had 40 employees and a company quietly growing in directions. I didn't advertise. 14 months before that Thanksgiving, the Wall Street Journal had published a valuation, $2.1 billion. The Holloway family's total net worth, the estate, the commercial properties, every trust and holding was approximately $400 million. I knew this because 2 years earlier, one of my subsidiaries had extended the Holloway Group a commercial credit line of $12 million through a bank called Meridian Capital Partners. They knew the bank's name. They signed the documents. They did not ask who owned Meridian. I did. Dinner had been civil until Margaret folded her hands on the tablecloth and looked at me with the expression she reserved for contractors who miss deadlines. Asterisk Clare, asterisk, she said, making my name sound like a minor inconvenience. Asterisk, you're a smart girl. Smart enough to understand what this family represents. What we're asking is simply a formality. Asterisk. Howard set down his fork. Asterisk, Daniel's grandfather built this family from nothing. We protect what was built. That's not personal. Asterisk. Asterisk, it feels a little personal. Asterisk, I said. Victoria, Daniel's sister, smiled her practiced smile, the one of affectionate condescension, the one she had been perfecting since the day we met. Asterisk, no one is attacking you. Claire, you came into this family with nothing. We'd simply like clarity on what leaves with you if things don't work out. Asterisk. Preston, her husband, Yale Law, the family's designated reasonable voice, reached for his wine. Asterisk, we've done our due diligence. Your company's last filed revenue, $48,000. We're not here to humiliate you. We're here to protect the family. Asterisk. I looked at Preston for a long moment. Asterisk, pull out your phones. Asterisk, I said. Asterisk, search Wheeler Systems. Asterisk. Nobody moved. Asterisk, please. Asterisk, I said. And the word was so precise and controlled that Victoria actually reached for her phone before catching herself. Daniel picked his up first. He typed. He read. I watched the color leave his face. Howard followed. Then Victoria. Preston's jaw tightened. The silence that followed was the kind that changes rooms permanently. Asterisk, this isn't asterisk, Howard started. Asterisk, possible. Asterisk, one offered. Asterisk, you've been running this company since before you married Daniel. Asterisk, Margaret said. Her voice had not changed. Even now. I respected that about her. She did not allow herself the luxury of visible shock. Asterisk, I founded Vealer when I was 24. Asterisk, I said. Asterisk, the 48,000. Preston mentioned belongs to a shell entity used for administrative purposes. It has nothing to do with the operating company. Asterisk. I picked up the postnuptial agreement and held it. Asterisk, I understand why you had this drawn up. You thought I was someone who had something to gain and nothing to offer. You thought the math was simple, asterisk. I set it down and reached into my bag. I pulled out a manila folder. Asterisk 18 months ago. Asterisk, I said. Asterisk, your family refinanced 3. Holloway Group Properties through a $12 million credit line from Meridian Capital Partners. Asterisk. I looked at Howard. Asterisk, in November of last year, I acquired a controlling interest in Meridian, which means I hold the note on your credit line. Asterisk, I slid a document across the table. Asterisk, the balloon payment due in December was missed. The line is in technical default, asterisk. Howard stood up. Asterisk, sit down, Howard. Asterisk, I said, quiet. Final, and the surprise of. Hearing it said that way made him hesitate. Long enough that he actually sat back down. Asterisk, I'm not calling it. Asterisk, I said. Asterisk, I want to be very clear about that. I have no interest in your business. What I have is documentation, asterisk. I turned to Preston. Asterisk, the investment account you've been running through. Trident Advisory received material non-public. Information about a pharmaceutical company's FDA filing timeline. The source was a contact at Strickland Financial. Strickland was acquired by a Vealer subsidiary in September. Their internal communications are now subject to our compliance review. I forwarded the relevant files to the Sex Whistleblower Division. 6 days ago, asterisk. Victoria turned slowly to look at her husband. Preston opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Outside, tires crunched on the gravel driveway. Asterisk, that would be the federal compliance team. Asterisk, I said. Asterisk, I authorized a voluntary disclosure 2 weeks ago. They asked me to be present for the initial interview. Asterisk, I looked at Preston. Asterisk, that's you. This was the home option. You're welcome, asterisk. I stood up. Asterisk, I want to say one thing clearly. Asterisk, I said. Asterisk, I don't hate you. I'm not doing this out of hatred, asterisk. I looked at Margaret. Asterisk, you handed me a 14-page document and a pen and told me to sign away my rights because you had already decided what I was. I let you finish your turkey. I let you say every word you had planned to say. Because if you were going to do it, you deserved the chance to do it all the way. And I deserved the chance to respond all the way. Asterisk. I looked at Daniel. Asterisk, I never hid from you. Asterisk, I said. Asterisk, you never looked. There's a difference, asterisk. I buttoned my coat. Asterisk, I'll be at the Whitmore Hotel if you want to talk. Genuinely talk. Not Holloway talk. I'm still your wife. I'd like the chance to find out if that means something, independent of all of this. But that's your decision, asterisk. The November air outside was clean and cold. I passed the first black SUV. A man in a dark coat gave me a brief nod. I sat in my car for a moment with my hands on the wheel, watching the estate in the rearview mirror. Every window lit, the house enormous and certain of itself. My phone buzzed. My CFO, Rachel, asterisk all clear on the Meridian documentation. WSJ wants a comment on Trident, asterisk. I typed back, asterisk Monday. Send flowers to the team. Long quarter, asterisk. I thought about calling my mother. I would call her tomorrow. And she would say something that made enormous. Things feel manageable without making them small. She had always had that gift. I thought about Daniel the first time I saw him, before I knew his family. Spilling coffee on himself in a hotel lobby and laughing immediately. Without embarrassment. I had thought, asterisk, that's someone real, asterisk, I still believed it was in there. Whether he could find it again was not something I could do for him. I put the car in drive. The gates opened. I didn't feel triumphant the way I thought I would. I felt the way you feel at the end of a very long project, the specific exhaustion of having finally finished something. And underneath it, quiet as snowfall. A particular lightness. The kind that comes after